So I read Fallen Angels by Walter Dean Myers. It was published in 2002 in Columbus, Ohio by Glencoe and McGraw-Hill. And I borrowed this book from Social Circle High School, actually, from Catherine Vandenberg's MT, because she usually teaches this book. And immediately when I saw it, it reminded me of high school because of the Glencoe Literature Library edition. So I don't know, that was kind of a happy memory for me. And it was, I don't know, it's kind of amazing what the cover of a book can do for the book. But so Fallen Angels is about Richie Perry, who is a high school graduate. He just graduated high school. Very intelligent, very driven, wants to be a writer. But he lives in Harlem, New York, in the slums, basically. And he decides to join the military to escape that and maybe to find himself. So he finds out that his knee is not good enough to go into combat. So the officers are like, yeah, we'll process your medical file, it'll be fine. You won't actually have to end up going into combat, but there's some confusion, some things get mixed around. He actually ends up going to Vietnam, but his commanding officers are like, no, 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 like, we're gonna process your medical file, like, you're gonna be fine. You won't have to go into combat, it'll be okay. But of course, he does end up going into combat. So it's really just a story of Perry really trying to find himself. He's not really sure why he's in Vietnam. He's not really sure why he left Harlem, but he's searching for something, and he can't really decide what it is. And what he ends up finding is that the lines between right and wrong are often really blurred, and he sees that in the war, and that's pretty much his main discovery about himself and life and everything like that. So I don't know, I really, really liked the book for a couple different reasons. There were some really great quotes in there. I think my favorite was, I had to type it out because I wasn't gonna remember it, but it's one of the sergeants. He says, my father used to call all soldiers angel warriors because they usually get boys to fight wars. And I thought that was a really incredible quote because I don't know, it really kind of highlights the thing that that Perry learns, that like there's that blurred line between right and wrong and good and bad and all that stuff, because the title of the book is Fallen Angels. So they're angels that have gone from the status of being good to maybe being not so good, but they're still angels at the end of the day. And I just feel like that was a very poetic way of talking about soldiers, and I really liked that. And another quote I really liked was when he said, war is hours of boredom and seconds of terror, because that is probably the truest thing that I've ever heard. I have some pretty personal experience with having to deal with people you love going into war and stuff like that, and even when you're not like specifically involved in it, even when you're back at home, it still is hours of boredom, seconds of terror, because you hear something happening and you're like, oh gosh, it's terrifying, like, what happened, is he okay, and like all this stuff. And that's, I don't know, that's just such a great little aphorism for how war affects everybody, really. So right off the bat, I was reading, and I immediately thought of Remember the Titans, because in the book he talks about how they all go into combat together. And initially one of the sergeants is really racist, and he'll put all of the African American soldiers in the most dangerous spots in the formation, but eventually that kind of like fades to the background, and they just become like this brotherhood and this like unit of, just doesn't really matter if you're white or you're black, like they're just in this together. And I just, I really, really liked that a whole lot. And so I feel like, I don't know, Remember the Titans, I'm not really sure, I feel like it would be a really cool like thing to juxtapose it with, and it's just, I don't know, I guess it kind of happens around the same time, so I don't know, I think it's a kind of cool way, because I know with my sophomores at Social Circle, if I have a video, they're in. So I feel like if you like read parts of the text and then like showed clips of the video, I feel like they would be pretty engaged by that. And also, I feel like there is a great amount of irony in the story, because at the end, after he's gone into combat and all this stuff, he finally gets his medical thing processed, and they're like, oh yeah, like you can go home, right after, he's already fought and gets wounded in the war and all this stuff. And it really reminded me of Alanis Morissette's song, Isn't It Ironic? And she's like, it's a death row pardon, 2 minutes too late, like that kind of thing. So I feel like that would be a cool way to juxtapose like history with pop culture, even though Alanis Morissette might be a little bit too old for some of the kids, but the song's still really great, and maybe we could like play it and look at the lyrics and stuff. And also, there was one other book I thought about juxtaposing with, and it has to do with war. It's called The Cellist of Sarajevo, and it's about this sniper in Sarajevo during all the uprisings and stuff like that. And she basically just like abandons her identity to become this really awesome sniper chick who just like takes out the enemy or whatever. And she gives up who she is, but at the end, she ends up sacrificing herself, but she dies as herself and not as the sniper that she had become. So I don't know, I feel like that could be tied into how Perry really defines himself during the war and is able to define his opinion on life and good and bad and stuff in the war. But all in all, I really actually really enjoyed this book, and I would really like to read more things by Walter Dean Myers. This is actually my first book that I've read by him, and I'm very intrigued, and I thought it was great. I think this would be a perfect book to teach to my sophomores. So I'm actually going to definitely consider using it for our fiction unit that we're going to be doing in the spring. So yeah, this was a super helpful book, and I'm very glad that I got to read it. And that is my book vlog.